Hello, everyone. We'll be starting in 1 minute. All right, we're just waiting for Cynthia. Oh, I'm in the middle again. We always try to move it around. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to YNS Live with NFL Thread with my co-host Cynthia Zordich, founder of Thread, and Ashley Peterson, CEO and founder of Elizabella Cosmetics, and the spouse of Adrian Peterson, who is a free agent right now. Welcome, welcome. And Cynthia, I know you're going to give a longer description, but I just wanted everyone to, we are excited about this. We're excited about every episode that we can share stories, because stories connect us. But it's exciting because I met Ashley at the Super Bowl event last year, and we're getting ready to have another one. So it's just really fun for us to get together and just kind of catch up and hear what we're all doing. So welcome to YNS Live with NFL Thread, live on Fireside.
Yes, thank you, Ashley, for coming. We're so happy to have you today to talk about so many things. As not only are you a CEO, a wife, the founder of your own cosmetic line, but also the founder of the A&A Peterson Family Foundation, which I can't wait to dive into too. So there's just so much to talk about, and we always love seeing you at the Super Bowl. You just shine on that runway. You are just so magnificent on the runway. And then we had the chance to talk to you afterwards and behind the scenes last year. So we've been wanting to do this for a long time. And so thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. And so I want to just a little housekeeping before we get started. So everyone in the audience, welcome. And I know people are going to be coming in and out, James and Xavier right now. There are people on LinkedIn shouting out right now. There's people on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So welcome. If you guys are listening to the replay, we're excited to have you dive into this story. So if you guys are in the room right now, what I would love for you to do is to click the two little lines at the bottom to the left. And I want you to, click on that, and then you can broadcast to the world. So what that means is you can actually send an email, a text to friends and family. You can also post it on other social medias where people can listen in to the show. So if they don't have access to Fireside, they're able to still listen in, which is really, really fun. So like if you're on LinkedIn right now, you see my whole banner is this live video, which is awesome, and YouTube and all of that. So this is what's really fun about Fireside and why we love it so much. So also before we get started, I want you guys to go and follow, and you don't have to do it right now. And if you're driving, do not do it right now. Wait until you get home. But go to Ashley's Instagram. That is where she hangs out the most. And you can go to Miss Ashley Peterson. You'll see this. This will also be in the show notes. And also Elizabella Cosmetics. So I am, again, we are excited to get started. So what we always do is we ask a little bit about you. Who are you, Ashley Peterson? Where did you grow up? Did you go to university? And then we'll dive into the rest of the story.
Absolutely. So my name is Ashley Peterson. I am married to Adrian Peterson. I have two boys, aged 7 and 11, named Axel and Adrian Jr. I am originally from Oklahoma, actually. I grew up, my parents, well, I didn't really grow up there, but my parents are from a very small town called Muskogee, Oklahoma. So I don't know if you've ever heard the saying Okie from Muskogee, but that's where my parents are from. And so
the officer and the gentleman said that line. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I actually didn't even know where that came from, but that's where my parents are from. That's where they grew up. So that's where I was born. I moved, excuse my voice, I've been a little under the weather for the past few days, so it's a little shaky, but I moved to Houston when I was around 5, actually. Lived here until I was in the 3rd grade, and then I moved back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I grew up in Tulsa. I went to Broken Arrow High School, and then from there, I went on to the University of Oklahoma before moving to Los Angeles to pursue my dreams in modeling.
Yeah, and I love that because I do want to dive into that. I do. I mean, the fact that you were in the Midwest, what kind of got you get the bug to want to model? Like where did that come from? Was that something that, as you said, it was always a dream, but where did that dream come from?
Honestly, all that I can say is that it was something that God placed inside of me because
Hmm.
literally, as long as I can remember back, that's what I wanted to do. Like from birth, as far as I'm
Right.
concerned, I always knew that I wanted to do that. I was always interested in not just modeling, but all things beauty, makeup, hair, all the girly things, getting dressed up. I can remember when I was living in Houston, so I was very young, probably about 6 or something like that. My mom and dad bought me a makeup set for Christmas. And I did my makeup, and my dad said to my mom, "Have you seen Ashley? She did her makeup." And she's like, "Oh, no, I haven't seen her yet." And he's like, "It looks pretty good, actually." And so it's just something that I've always known, and it's always been inside of me as something that I wanted to do. So actually, my first experience in modeling was when I was in the 3rd grade. I just moved back to Oklahoma. And I don't know if you guys remember glamour shots,
Oh
but
yes.
Yeah. Oh,
it
yeah.
was a big thing, back then. And my parents actually took me to glamour shots. I got all made up and I took my pictures, and that was like my first foot into modeling, into dabbling. And it's so funny because just a few months ago, I found that picture and I showed my oldest son, Adrian, and he's like, "How old were you here?" And I was like, "I was in the 3rd grade." And he was like, "You look so much older." And I was like, "You know what? I do." What was going on here? But I've known since then that I loved it. It's always been what I wanted to do. And anytime anyone ever asked me, that's what I said I wanted to do. I never wavered. So it's something that I just feel like God put inside of me because, it's always been there.
I
I
love
think
that. Go ahead,
I
Cynthia.
do
Yeah.
too. And I think it's interesting that that you majored in communications at Oklahoma, because that kind of fits in
Right.
that, like, if, you can tell where you're going with this, this is really
Yeah.
important in that field and possibly lead to other things like acting, broadcasting, whatever it is. But tell me about that experience for you.
Honestly, it's so funny because when I went into Oklahoma, I was initially a business major because that's what my mom did and that's what she excelled in. And so it just was like, oh, okay, well, let me go into business. But in doing that, I learned that that wasn't necessarily my passion. My passion was communicating with people, talking. I was
Hmm.
always getting in trouble in school for talking to people. Who knew that it would
Me
lead me
too.
here, And so I feel like it's one of those things where we always have what we need inside of us. And it's just, we have to bring it out. It's like an onion. We have to peel those layers back to bring out what's inside of us. So I ended up changing my major from business to communications. And, I did well in it. I excelled in it. When I moved to Los Angeles, in addition to modeling, I actually signed with a commercial agency as well. So I began auditioning for commercials. I started taking acting classes and something that came natural to me. So it was the path that I took. It's like, when something is kind of laid out before you, when there's a plan, it's easy to follow it. When things come easy like that, I feel like that's when you're walking in your purpose.
Oh my gosh, so much. And we talk about that on the podcast all the time. So I'm curious about this. So I had a guest on a long time ago, Marianne Alda. She's an actress. She was one of the first Black actresses to like break into, it was soap operas and then sitcoms. And what she said is when she was acting, she didn't want to be the starving actress. Like she didn't want to like work and wait tables. So what she did is signed up to do commercials and voiceovers. But back then it was looked at to be like, oh, you're cheating. You need to be the starving artist. And she was like, no, I don't. I want to be wealthy, but I want to be, and not just wealthy. I want I want to be able to do more. So was there a reason that you went into that part? You wanted to be a model, but as you were kind of exploring that world, were you like, okay, I can also multi-layer because of my communications major? Was that done purposely or was it kind of just accidentally?
Honestly, it was something that happened upon me. Like it stumbled
Okay.
onto my lap. So when I went to Los Angeles, I actually went out there. My parents did not want me to move. I was only 21. My parents did not want me to move to Los Angeles. They said, hey, if you're going to do this, you need to have a plan because we're not going to financially support you out there doing this. So I actually went to Los Angeles. I had an uncle that lived there, but I'd never met him in my life because he was in the military. And so he had, been doing the
Right.
military thing for years. But my mother, said, hey, well, your uncle's there. He can help you out. So I went to Los Angeles. He actually took me to every open call at every agency.
Wow.
I ended up getting signed. All of them denied me because I'm only 5'7", which in the modeling world, it's like, why are you here? I'm
Right.
like 5'7" and 3/4. So I'm right at 5'8", but really you have to be like 5'9", 5'10".
I see.
But I didn't let that stop me. So I went to every open call. The last one I went to was for Ford models. And they signed me that day. They said,
Wow.
okay, if you move back out here, we'll sign you. I literally moved back or went back to OU, packed up all my stuff, kind of wrapped everything up, and I moved to California within like a month or two because I
Yeah.
knew that that was my passion and that's what I wanted to do. So
Right.
when I got there, Ford Models said, hey, we think you have a really commercial look. We're going to put you with this commercial agency. So then they put me with the creative artist agency, which was one of the top commercial agencies in Los Angeles. So something that wasn't even a thought in my mind, God had already laid it out for me and made it possible for me to get in that door without having to beat it down. And so from there, I began auditioning for commercials. I began getting commercials, which is way more lucrative than modeling, to be honest.
Right.
And so that's kind of what helped to pay my bills out there while I was trying to make it in this modeling world.
So
So that's how it happened.
it's so
I
great.
love,
And you
yeah.
were with some serious brands. You were with Verizon, McDonald's, and
Yeah,
others. So,
Target.
what was it
Hmm.
like seeing your own commercial? If you were you ever home with your family, and all of a sudden, or your friends, and then your commercial comes on, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, there I am."
Yeah, honestly. And it was really, really exciting to be honest. Just having the opportunity to have national commercials, like that's stuff that people dream of. And I was
Right.
able to, thankfully accomplish that in such a short period of time of being there. And so of course it's really cool to see yourself on a TV screen, and it's so funny because I don't even think my kids have like seen it. I need to go back and find those
You
commercials and those
do.
You
videos and
do.
show them. But
Yeah.
it's really cool to think about, honestly, because like it's an opportunity that not everyone gets. So I really don't take it for granted at all.
I think that's so cool. And I mean, again, we talk about this all the time. Like, I truly believe everyone has a path, and whether it's the universe or God you believe in, and I believe in God, that he lays things out, lays things out. And it's just
Yeah.
as
Hmm.
you said, like when doors open, it's just like, okay, oh, I'm supposed to walk through this door. Okay. I
Right.
need to take a left or a right.
Exactly.
So I think, and this is again, stories connect us. So like your makeup, I'm picturing you at 3, and now the journey of these dots just connecting along the road, right? And I'm
Right.
sure there was ups and downs, but when you were in the modeling industry and doing the commercials, did your love for makeup and that kind of, did that grow? Did that feed it? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because, in that world, you get an opportunity every day that you're booked for a job. you're essentially a new person. You are who that client needs you to be that day.
Right.
So if you have to wear a wig, if you have to do whatever your makeup needs to be like, you never know what you're going to get, you know?
Right. Right.
And so it's new and it's different and it's exciting every day, which for someone like me, I thrive in that kind of environment. Like I love excitement. I love spontaneity and I love to try new looks. Like if anyone knows me, they know, honey, I'm going to change the hair up. I'm going to change the makeup. Like I'm here for a look. Okay. And so having the opportunity to like get to work with amazing photographers, with amazing makeup artists, hairstylists, with creatives who their whole passion is creating beautiful works of art, like it was so invaluable. And of course, that just, continued to set a fire to my love for makeup, which I already had. I grew up loving makeup. And then in addition, my mom sold Mary Kay for a while when I was younger. It was like a side hustle that she had just to make more money. And so, in getting the opportunity to work with her, she let me sample all of her
I love
products. We
that.
would have Mary Kay parties. Yeah.
Love it.
And that was a way that we bonded as well because we both love all those kinds of things. And so, in that, having the opportunity to model and to just do what I would do for free anyway, it was amazing. And it just helped me to learn more about the beauty industry, to learn more about makeup, to learn more about how to do my own makeup because I'm watching these makeup artists do it. A lot of what I've learned with my own makeup is asking makeup artists, okay, what did you just put on me and how did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So having the opportunity to do that in a setting where I was also getting paid for it, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Absolutely. I mean, you're
So
learning from
beautiful.
the top professionals in that industry, in your industry. And I'm sure, when you're creating your own line, it's all coming together, just all that experience and all that knowledge and all the, you're seeing not only the makeup in the packaging and in life, but on and being applied, which is, you're right, it's like a master's, of application. It's fantastic.
Right, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so, but I'm also curious, did you, because I love that the bond that you and your mom had too. I mean, that's so cool that kind of like she was doing the side hustle as you were falling in love with makeup. And then, as your journey went, did you have other siblings as well that, loved what your mom was doing? Or was this just like a really special thing just between you and her?
So my parents only have me and a younger brother. I have a younger brother who's about 2.5 years younger than me.
Hmm.
And it was like me and my mom and all the beauty stuff and all that stuff, and my dad and my brother and all the sports stuff and
Right.
all of that. So my brother could definitely care less about any of the beauty stuff. He was never involved. But it gave me and my mom an opportunity, like we're really close,
Yeah.
because
I
of
love that.
just having having that bond growing up, being able to learn from her. And even now that I'm an adult and now that I'm a grown woman and a wife and a mom myself, and I look back at how my mom juggled it all, I have so much respect for her
Right.
because now I see how difficult it is.
Right.
And she did it and she did it well. And, like she was an amazing teacher. And so, having that opportunity to do those things with her is something that I really cherish because I know not everyone has that opportunity with their mother.
Yeah. So special.
That brings
Hmm.
a good point, because in your life you had to make a really big decision. Once you have the boys and you have your modeling career, that you decided, okay, I need to change things up a little bit. I need to shift focus for a bit, and so that had to be a very difficult decision, an important decision, and it's almost like our other show, Pivot, where we could really talk about that transition, because I would love for you to share how that came about and even the aftermath of making that decision to leave modeling and what that led to from there.
Right. So when I was about 25, I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest son, Adrian Jr. And I was still living in Los Angeles at the time. I was still working. As a matter of fact, my last big shoot when I lived in Los Angeles was for Vibe magazine. I had a full page spread in Vibe magazine, and I was pregnant with Adrian Jr.
So awesome.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, and so it was something that, wasn't planned, but God's plan is always better than ours. And
Right.
so, I was in Los Angeles. Like, I had a two-bedroom apartment set up. I had stuff set up for my baby. The plan was to come to Houston, have my son with my now husband, and go back to Los Angeles and continue working. That was my plan. But God had a different plan. And so I moved to Houston, and I literally never went back. Like, I didn't even go back to pack up my apartment. My uncle packed up my apartment for me and
Wow.
sent everything that needed to be sent. And I got out of the lease, and, that was that. So I ended up moving to Houston, and then, of course, moving to Minnesota, where my husband was actually playing at the time. And although it wasn't my plan, it was just, once I had my son, I realized that I wanted to be there with him.
Mhm.
I didn't want to have to get up and leave him with someone that I didn't know. And because I was afforded the opportunity to actually spend that time with him, I took it. And it was something that I'm so grateful for, because not everyone has the opportunity to be there with their child and not go back to work if they don't want to.
Right.
So I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. And it was a hard decision, but it wasn't. It was like, no, this is my baby, and I'm going to stay here with him. You know,
Mhm.
and so at any point I could have gone back to Los Angeles, but that's just not where life took me.
Took us,
That's not
right.
the path that I was on. I didn't want to raise a child in the middle of Los Angeles, because I was actually living in North Hollywood at the time. So, not a bad area, but I didn't want to raise a child there. I didn't want to, I didn't really know anyone. I didn't have any family out there. I didn't know anyone personally like that besides my uncle and his wife and their daughter, which, I mean, of course, they were wonderful. They took me in. I slept on their couch before I had my own apartment, all of that.
That's awesome.
But it was like, it's different, being somewhere so far away from all of your family, away from his father, and all of that is just very different. So I made a decision that I felt like was best for me, him, and our family at the time.
Right. That's beautiful. Now, and I would just want to go back for a second. How did you and Adrian meet? If you can take us through that a little bit,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. So we actually met at the University of
That's what I
Oklahoma.
thought, and I was like, I think I
Yeah.
remember that, but I'm not going to say that because now I'm thinking maybe I don't know that because of how that story's going. So that's
That's
why I asked
awesome.
that.
Right. I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
what I thought. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we met freshman year, University of Oklahoma. We actually met at a party, a sorority party. That was the first time, and it was at the beginning of the year, and we started dating, and the rest is history.
That is so
But so,
fun.
but so you guys lived apart. So you were dating, but lived apart for a bit, or did you take a break in between there?
Oh yeah, we took a lot of breaks. There were a lot of breaks. We were young.
Yeah. Very young.
We were
Yeah.
18 years
We
old
did
when
too.
we met,
Right.
And so it's like you have to live your life too. And so we were 18 when we met. We were friends first, became friends, but he locked me down pretty quickly. And from there, we of course went through all the growing pains of growing. He got drafted to Minnesota. I moved to LA. It's very difficult to maintain a relationship when you're halfway across the world from each other. So we went through all those ups and downs, all those ebbs and flows, and eventually found our way back to each other.
I mean, again, that's God's path. And Cynthia, I love that you chuckled because I know you and Michael met when you guys were so young, and it's so interesting to me because so I met my husband when I was in my mid to late 20s. We didn't get married until I was in my 30s, and so I had I kind of like sowed my oats before, and then it was like, but it's all like I sowed some oats. I lived in New York City, and I had a lot of fun. But it's so
Yeah.
interesting to hear like you met, and that's I love that story because there's so many stories of so many women that we have on the show. Cynthia, am I correct that you guys usually you meet young And then life takes you different paths, but it always comes back. And I think that's so special and so, just so cool.
Yeah. It's like, it seems to be that the one
Right.
common thing is there's a lot of breaks.
Well, that's what you really loved. Yeah.
A lot of breaks, because you are growing
Yeah.
and you are committed, but you still, you still have wings and you still have your own personal dreams. And so your
Right.
vision of yourself. So there's a lot of battleground there, I think, when you are with somebody, starting so young.
And I think what's so important though.
Absolutely. And honestly,
No, go ahead, Ashley, go ahead.
oh, no, I was just going to say, and honestly, I think that that was good for both of us, to have like, we were, so young when we got together, we were able to have separation in our own life
Mhm.
experiences and growth
Yes.
that didn't have to happen together, and being able to have life experiences, have wisdom that helps you in the future, and have, you want to be able to have some fun, like Julia said, I had a lot of fun. So, you know,
Well, and I think that's what's important. And I think it's really important also people here for relationships. When people meet young, it is important to still have your own life and still grow. So I love that you knew that you guys were in love, but you had your dreams. And the fact that you followed your dreams, I think just makes for a stronger marriage. And that's my own personal opinion. Like when you follow your own dreams
yeah,
and you don't let yourself, because then there's no resentment. It's like, okay, I've done this, I've done that, and I've tried this, but this is where I'm meant to be now.
Right.
Let's see where life takes us. So I think that's, so really, really important. So you guys were living apart. You had the baby, then you were you were then together. And take us through that a little
yeah.
bit. So now you're living under one roof with a newborn baby. How did that play out?
Yeah, so I moved in with him. Actually, I stayed with my mom and dad for the first 6 weeks after my son. I'm sorry,
No
excuse me.
worries.
Being a new mother, not knowing anything,
Right.
I stayed with my mom for the first 6 weeks. And oh God, it was so
So
helpful,
great.
Of course, having your mom there to help you because she couldn't come to me because, she's always been in corporate America and she's always worked a lot. And so, um, I went and stayed with her for a while. And then at that 6 weeks, I went ahead and moved to Minnesota and, kind of started our life as a family of three. And, just like with anything, it was really amazing, but there were a lot of, growing pains. There was a lot of things with me being a new mom, having to deal with, you know, I don't know if it was, I still don't know to this day if it was postpartum, if it was the baby blues, not sure what it was, but not feeling like myself.
Hmm.
So, of course, having to go through all of those changes and learning, okay, who am I now?
Right.
I'm no longer a model, which has been my identity for as long as I can remember. I am now someone's mom, which, you know, it was an amazing curveball, but it was a
Mhm.
curveball,
Right.
And so just having to deal with that growth myself as a woman, that's a lot of change for anyone. And I was still rather young looking back. When you're 25, 26 years old, me
Right.
being, where I am now, it's like you're still learning about yourself in that time, and you're still learning what you like, what you don't like, what you want, what you don't want. And so, of course, there were a lot of growing pains. It was just a lot of change in that time. But, it was something that I definitely would never take back or never change. My kids have been the biggest blessing in my life. They bring me the most joy. They make me so happy. And I'm thankful and grateful that I have the opportunity to be their mother because it's such a blessing and because I feel like that God gave me the opportunity to bring something great into this world. And so it's my job to cultivate that. It's my job to help to steer them in the right direction because they didn't ask to be here. I asked for this and God has blessed me with a gift and I have to cherish it as such and I have to treat it as such.
That's
Right.
so
And I
beautiful.
think I like that you say that, but I think what you did and what you did next, I think, is really important for all moms, not just NFL moms, but all moms, because you made a decision for your family to give up modeling, to step away from modeling, something that was very important to you. And I think a lot of us make decisions like that. We make the decision that is best for our family. And for many, it's the right decision. But sometimes it is not the right decision. Sometimes it's unsettling, and we realize we may have given up too much. And we need to find that balance. And I think that I really would love for you to share the story of how you realized that, while it is so fulfilling to be a mom and it is fulfilling to be in the NFL life, the family, there's something you needed to do for yourself. And can you share how you realized that and the decisions you made based on that to start Elizabella
Absolutely.
Cosmetics?
So, yes. So, I had my son Adrian, and then about 4 years later, I had my youngest son Axel. And so, in that time, I had been working, had been a stay-at-home mom, which, let's be clear, is a very hard job. So that is, I mean, yes, I'd say one of the hardest. So I had been doing that, and when my youngest son was probably about two, it was just like, especially when you are in the NFL life, you just can begin to easily lose yourself because especially if you're with someone who has this larger than life persona in the NFL, it's like you get so lost in the shuffle. Everything is about then you become the personal assistant, you become everything, you have to hold it all together, a lot of times. And so in that, it's so easy to lose yourself. Like, even if your significant other is not in the NFL or any other sports arena, it is very easy to lose yourself in being a wife and in being a mother, when that's all you're doing every day. And when you're feeling like this is all that I am, sometimes it can begin to take a toll on you mentally. You can begin to say, okay, well, what am I without this? Well, who am I without this? And the biggest question that most people struggle with throughout life is, who am I? What am I here for? And so I began to really examine that, because although I love my kids, I love my husband, it just seemed like it wasn't enough. I'm here. God put me here for a reason, and yes, it was to be his wife, and yes, it was to be their mother. But what else is there for me? I began to ask those questions, and it was like, okay, I have to do something for myself. I have to do something outside of this bubble at home, cooking and cleaning and taking care of people. Let's begin to take care of yourself as well. And so I thought, what do I want to do? And so it's so funny, because I've always had this list of things that I wanted to do, and it since I was a child, and having my own cosmetics company, modeling, doing these things that I've done were on that list, and they've always been on that list. So it was always inside of me. And so I began to think, what do I really want to do? And I was talking to one of my friends one day, and I tell this story all the time because this is exactly how it happened. I was talking to this woman, and I said, I've been wanting to start a cosmetic company for a long time. I've really been wanting to do this. And she said, well, why don't you just do it then? Well, what is stopping you? Do it. And I thought to myself, what is stopping me? And I literally that day just began to take the steps to do it. And it was for my mental health. It was for me to get out of the lull that I had been in, of just like the monotony of every day getting up. When you have young kids, that any mother knows how draining that can be. And so just to kind of breathe life into myself a little bit, I began to do something that made me happy and that brought me joy outside of them. And so I started the process. I started, trying different formulas. I knew makeup. I knew what I wanted. I knew what other people would want. I knew what you needed in makeup. I knew you needed it to be long lasting because when you're shooting all day, they don't want to keep reapplying the makeup.
Right.
I knew that I wanted it to be smooth and velvety. I knew what it should feel like on my lips. I already had that knowledge. I already
Oh, I
had
love
the
that.
tools that I needed to make this happen. And so all that I needed to do was get outside of myself and take the first step, which is the hardest thing to do. It's so hard to do something new. And a lot of times people don't do it because they don't want to fail, which is exactly the reason that I didn't do it for so long,
Got it.
because I'm a perfectionist. And I feel like if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm not going to half do it. I'd rather not do it at all than to do it and I'm not doing it correctly. And so in that, I also had to learn, you know what, it's okay to fail, because how do you succeed if you don't fail? Everyone who has succeeded has failed at some point or another. And the difference between them and them is that this person got back up and tried again. And so that's something that honestly I even have to remind myself now to this day, because during COVID, Elizabella was doing well for being a new business, especially. And during COVID, I had like 4 trade shows lined up, and that's where I sold the most, is at trade shows, because it's one thing to be online, but it's a whole nother thing to be right in front of people, for you to
Interesting.
be able to try the product and see the product and how it worked. And so in 2020, when everything shut down and shut all my trade shows down, messed up my profits, messed up everything. From then, I really had to begin to be like, oh my gosh, like, it was a huge blow to me. It was a huge blow to my confidence in the business. It was a huge blow to my self-esteem in the business world, because it's
Mm.
like, okay, what do I do now? What I thought was going to happen didn't happen, and it was completely out of my control. So what do I do now? And so even now I have to struggle with, okay, what am I going to do to overcome these things? There are ebbs and flows in life always. And you have to realize that that's something that you have to roll with. You can't control everything, which is something that I had trouble with, because I am a type A personality. I have a plan. I want to control what's going on. And although I'm spontaneous and exciting, and I'll do all kinds of things on a whim, I also want to have a plan for my
Right.
life. And so I feel like that getting into that and doing that for myself, number one, helped my confidence. It helped me to be me again. It helped me to find my identity again. And it helped me in that moment to get out of that depression that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
The monotony, the pressure of having to do everything and be everything. And it's like, you know what, this is something that's just for me.
Right.
This is something that I'm going to do for me for no other reason than because it makes me happy. And I feel like this is the path I need to be on right now. And so it was life changing. It's so exciting when my younger son doesn't really get it right now, but my older son will say, "Oh, mom, are they wearing your Elizabella
That's
Cosmetics?"
great.
Like, it's so exciting
Yeah.
for him to see that not only his father can do these great things, but his mother as well,
Yes.
And I have,
and to see it from both sides.
Right.
yeah. And I've been sitting here like smiling, like literally screaming out of my seat, because this is why I started my podcast in 2019. I actually could get like so emotional, because what you said is so spot on. And it's so important for women, moms, to hear this. And this is literally why I started it. Because I remember when I had my first, I was always a confident kid, and I always babysat. And I always was like, oh, this is going to be so easy being a mom. And I remember holding my son, my first, and us not bonding and connecting. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And I remember my first time feeling insecure. And I was like, what is this feeling? I don't like this. I don't like this. And it was such a change that I did not expect. And I was like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Why didn't someone tell me I'm not going to bond? Everyone was like, oh, you bond, your baby's beautiful and all this. And we didn't. And my mom, thank goodness, was there, but I had a terrible cesarean. It was an emergency cesarean, and I was an athlete. So I thought I was going to jump back and be able to, be healed. And it was just this journey that it was so crazy to me. So the fact that you're up there talking and sharing what you just shared, and then when you just started talking about what you started creating because it was important to you, you could feel that. You could feel your passion. And that's what I talk about all the time. When someone is passionate about something and they get excited and you can hear it in their voice and you can see it in their body language, it is the most beautiful thing because your story is going to connect with so many people because you were just so real and authentic in sharing your truth and who you are and how you created this. So I thank you so much, but I do have a question with this because this is what fascinates me. Do you think some people are born with that grit, that tenacity? They have their goals and they're like, I want to go after it, or do you think it's something like that you learn?
Right. Honestly, I think it's a little bit of both.
Hmm.
Just from me and my experience,
Yeah.
I feel like you said, I had always been a confident kid. I had always, gotten straight A's, not but because it was important to me. Like it
Right.
gave me esteem to see that I was so good that I got all these A's. It gave me confidence to know, hey, I am extremely smart, you know? And so that was something that, although my mother stressed the importance of education, absolutely, honey, if we weren't getting A's or B's, it was like, why? What's going on? But it was also inside of me. It was something that I wanted outside of her. And so it's something that I even try to stress to my kids now, like, hey, I cannot make you want to be great. You have to want to be great. You have to. My oldest son, he loves football. Of course, he loves football. He does not love football practice. And I say to him, so you want to be this NFL player, you want to be great, you want to be at the top, but you don't want to go to practice every day that they have practice? I said, that's not how you be great. That's not how you attain the level of greatness that you want. So you're telling me what you want. I'm telling you how to get there, but I'm not going to make you do it. I cannot make you do anything you want to do. You have to have that inside of you. You have to have, and it's exactly what you said, Julia. You have to have that grit.
Hmm.
You have to have that motivation. Nobody made me go to California and go to all these modeling agencies. As a matter of fact, my parents were dead against it.
Mhm.
But I had it inside of me that
Hmm.
I have a dream, I have a goal. So this is what I have to do, regardless to what anyone else thinks about it, regardless to how anyone else feels. This is what I need to do. I know it, I feel it, so I'm going to do it. And I went out there on my own and I did it because I wanted to. No one made me. And you have to have that inside of you. And I feel like it was something that I was born with because I had always had the drive to be the very best at whatever I was doing, but then also was cultivated because my parents nurtured that. My mother nurtured that. My mother nurtured getting good grades, having good habits, being organized. My father nurtured doing, being the greatest at what you were trying to do, practicing on your craft, watching my parents do all the things that they did. That helped me to have a model for what it was to be a successful adult, or to have a model to do things even when you didn't want to. This is something that, looking back on it now, it just amazes me. My parents, went to college, hardworking middle class. However, couldn't always make the ends meet how we wanted to. And so my mom, she did the Mary Kay as an extra side hustle. My dad, I'll never forget, would get a second job during the holidays, not to get us the things that we needed, but to get us the things that we wanted. Not because he had to, but because as a father, his kids wanted these things and he was going to make it happen one way or another. So I remember going into my dad's second job and visiting him because we hadn't seen him all day, because he went from one job to the next, not
Hmm.
because he had to put food on our table, but because he had to put the latest whatever we wanted on us, you
Oh,
know? And
that's so
those are
beautiful.
things that you see. And when you see that hard work and when you see that drive, it's easier to model that.
Right.
And so that's why I try to be that for my kids. I try to, you know, of course, you want to get your rest and things like that. But even when I don't feel like it, I do it anyway. And that's something that I'm trying to teach my children. Even when you don't feel like it, sometimes you have to do it anyway. You know,
Mhm. I think I froze.
I think you both did. Huh. There.
Oh,
Excellent. She'll come right back on.
yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. It's so, my goodness, so important. And
yeah, it really is. And the other thing, Cynthia, because I wanted to ask her, is about the failure, because not everyone knows how to fail. And if she was succeeding at such high levels, I want to know where that, like, I know mine was because of like my dyslexia. Like I failed all the time. So it was like, it wasn't even like a thought like, oh, I'm just going to try this. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? But not everyone has that where they like go into something so boldly and like, okay, I'm going to give this up and I'm going to do this. Like I'm so curious about that as well. But I know we also want to talk about the foundation and stuff.
I want to talk about, but also, while we have this moment, I always feel like that's when I think your instinct kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as a person, not just a woman, but when you're stifling your contribution or your abilities or your human nature.
Yeah.
By giving up to take care of others, you're actually not giving to them because you're giving them half of yourself. You're not giving them your full self. So when you decide as a woman or a man to like, no, I need to do this and be a good mother and a good wife. And guess what? I will be a better person. And that is, so the idea that you mentioned that Adrian Jr. is so excited about what she does, to me, that is what you want, is for your children and your family to see you for who you really are.
Right.
And when you sacrifice, sometimes, it isn't good. Now, if you make that decision and you are there and you're happy and you're content and you are able to give them your full self because your whole heart is fulfilled, then that's awesome. It is. That's why I think that's a really good point. And it sounds like, with Elizabella and COVID, it sounds like she jumped through that, like the world, you know what I mean? Like the world had product sitting there. So I'm sure she's killing it.
Do you want to just text her and I'll just, because I also, I'm curious about, because it says that she's still in the room, but so that's why I'm not sure. It must have been some,
it might be the Wi-Fi that happens sometimes with that.
Totally. But so the thing that's also I'm curious about is because I love that her kids are at the age where they can recognize what she's doing. Like, I feel like my kids are at an age, they're teens. So they're kind of like, oh, mom's doing her thing. Like, there's times where I'm like, oh, I did this. And they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, oh my God, do you guys never listen to me? You
don't even know me.
I'm like, I sometimes joke and I'm like, I literally just told you that they're like, I didn't realize you were talking to that person, or I didn't know you and Cynthia were doing that, or I didn't know that, your Next Stop Live had that guy on. And I'm like, yeah, right. Hello. So I do think it's an interesting thing with age of kids. So I would love to ask you that question too, because you always did stuff when your kids were a certain age. So were they ever aware of of the stuff that you were doing with the photography and that, or did they just think, oh, like mom's happy, she's having fun? And then you created things when they were older. So I would love to know that as we're waiting for Ashley to come back.
I think that my kids, yes. They always knew I was doing something. One of the funniest stories was when I was doing all my printing and working on sepia tone. And so I had the whole kitchen island covered with my trays, and it stunk really bad too. But, they came in and so Michael is standing there and the kids were all there and all my prints were there. And I was like, what do you think? What do you think? And I'm just want applause from them. And he's like, yeah, but, and he grabbed two of my nice prints and he's like, but we can't eat it. And I'm like, I'll kill you. They always make fun of me.
Well, that's my kids. That's what my kids will kind of tease me a little bit. And I'm like, I know it's the teenage thing, but it is very interesting because I really didn't start doing anything out of the home until they were older. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I did I was the environmental chair, and I used to go into their school and was did a puppet show about recycle, reuse, and reduce. I'll keep talking. But so I used to do that. I did that in school for the kids when they were in school, but I didn't really start, the whole fitness thing that I did for a while. I didn't do that until, I guess they were young and they used to work out with me and think that was fun and cool. But this portion, I started this in 2019. And so, they were a little bit older and already kind of teenagers. So they were kind of in their world and in their life. And so I think it does say something. And I think that it's so beautiful. And you guys, as we're waiting for Ashley and Cynthia to get back on, you heard how excited I got. I mean, I got excited because that is what this podcast is about. This is why I started this podcast. This is why Cynthia and I started this segment, because it is so important. The message Ashley just told. I mean, she had a thriving modeling, she had a thriving modeling career, and then went and, stayed home with her son. And as her husband was going through, getting traded and being on NFL teams, she decided to stay home. So think about that. If you're a mom out there listening right now and you're in crossroads and you don't, know what to do and all these things. And then she decided, you know what, I need to create something for myself because this is not what I wanted to do. And so I think that is what's really important. I'm going to, I think Ashley's having a hard time getting back on, but let's see. So I think that that's what's important for you guys to kind of think about in your life and your, crossroads, men or women. I mean, this is messages for everyone. If you're not happy with what you're doing, if you are not happy with your life, if you feel like you're waking up and you're just kind of going through the motions, don't. You have one life. You have one life. Do something with it. And that's where I talk about, not so much on this segment, but on my other segments, it's about finding that space that you can find to either daydream. People call it meditate. I call it daydream. I have to move. I can't just sit and own like that. I would go nuts. So I walk my dogs. And when I walk my dogs, I create in my mind. I think of like what the future will be. I think about what I want and aspirations in life. And it's okay to daydream. Sometimes some of the daydreams don't come true. Sometimes they don't, go anywhere, but it's fun to think about it. And I know that there's people that don't do that in their life because they're afraid, as Ashley said, they're afraid of failure and they're afraid of not succeeding. But who are you afraid of failing for? Are you afraid of failing for yourself? Are you failing, your neighbor, your mom, your dad, your sisters, your brothers, your aunts, uncle, cousins, friends, whoever it is? Why are you limiting yourself to do something that maybe you're meant to be doing? So anyone out there that is listening, I want you guys to find that space today. That is your homework. That is your job, to find that space today where you can meditate. Some people do it when they drive. Some people do, and again, I call it daydreaming. I do it when I take my dogs for a walk. Some people do it in nature. Some people do it when they're doing laundry. I mean, figure out where that spot is where you can daydream and think about what you want in life. Maybe it's when you're cooking, just what you want in life, what your goals. Like if you can picture a life with no limitations, nothing. So no financial limitations, no any limitations, just something. Think about that life that you want to create and start taking the steps to do it. Talk to your friends, talk to people that are safe, talk to places, Google it, start listening to podcasts, start doing things to take the steps to be able to create that life that you want. And it is really, oh, good. Okay. Ashley is back. Here we go. That's why it's live shows make me laugh because sometimes this just happens. Ashley, I just invited you to video mode. There you are, my friend.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. No worries. We filled it.
Yeah, my phone overheated and it just turned off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Isn't that a course? No worries. But you know what, we were so excited. Like just that conversation we just had was so beautiful. And then Cynthia and I were even talking about, because I was saying this, and I'm going to repeat myself again, but I love that your kids are at the age where they're like, Mom, that's so exciting. When I stayed home, I think I was like I did environmental stuff for the town and for the schools. So I went and did puppet shows and I did that. And then when they were a little older, I did create my own business and I used to do health and fitness coaching and do exercise classes. And they were a little bit into that. But now I have 3 teenagers. And there's times like when I went to the Super Bowl last year and when I went to the Hall of Fame this year, they were like, oh, cool. And then when they were like, oh, wait, like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, do you guys listen to anything I say? But they're teens, right? They're not supposed to be so involved in what mom is doing. Right. But it cracks me up because I'm like, half of the time they have no idea, but they do see me that I am happier. They do see that I'm more fulfilled. They do see
Yeah.
that I have dreams and that I created this in my mind. And that's what is so exciting. You created something in your mind and you did it. And that's what the whole failure thing, Cynthia and I were just talking about it because there's people that are afraid of failure. And I was talking about it when you both were not there. There's people that are so scared of failure that they don't do anything. And it makes my heart hurt so bad. And that's one of the other reasons why I started this. So I do have a question for you. And then I know we're short on time, but I want you to touch on this. So I know I'm dyslexic, so school was really hard for me. So like when you were saying the A and B stuff, I tried my hardest to get A's and B's, and it was like, okay, that's not my gift. School is not my gift. I'm really good at other things. I studied communications in college, and that's where I really shined. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually am not bad in school, and I was an athlete, so I
Right.
like played two sports in school. But I am not afraid of failure because there were so many times just growing up that I failed that I didn't even realize I knew I was failing. But it was like, oh, I'll try this. I don't care. Like, I know what failure feels like. And to me, I'm learning from every time I fail. So I look at failure sometimes as like, oh, there's something bigger out there. This is exciting. I know that I'm on to something if I'm failing and I'm failing forward and I just keep doing it and trying. And I know God has my back and he's going to put me in that spot. But just as long as I'm trying and I'm consistent. So I believe like and my parents gave me that, like, okay, just dust yourself off, get up and do it again. And that's kind of how I was raised. So where do you think you got like kind of, again, like and I know you said that you did have the fear of failure for a little bit, but what do you think was that kind of pinnacle point that you were like, screw it, excuse my language, but I am not afraid and I'm just going to take this leap. If you can take us through a little bit of that.
Right. So, okay, let's start here. I am still very afraid of failure, and it's really funny because I feel like I being having the success that I had in school throughout my entire, educational career, I feel like it was good, but it was also
Yeah.
a little bit of a disservice to me because I had never
Right.
failed. I didn't fail at anything that I actually wanted to do. So I didn't even know what that felt like. So in Los Angeles, there was never a thought in my mind that I would fail. I knew that I was going to win and make it and be great because I'd always done that. And so I didn't even have a fear in doing that. Now, where I did have a fear and where I did have insecurity was in business because that was not my strong
Mm.
suit. Being creative, talking, taking beautiful pictures, that was nothing. I got it. I can do it in my sleep. But doing, having the confidence to start my own company, I was very afraid of failure. I was very afraid of what if I don't do it right? What will people say? What will people think? Because I wasn't used to failing. So it's like when you're not used to getting punched in the face, you're a little like, hold up, what's going on? But when my husband is out there training with our kids and he's like, hey, no, we're going to hit hard, we're going full force here because you have to know what it feels like to get hit and get back up, or else you're not going to be successful in what you're trying to do.
Oh,
So
her phone
when
might be doing.
I'm looking at things like that and I'm like, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello, can
you
you
were
guys
kind of
hear
going in
me?
and out, but that's all right. Yeah, can you hear us?
Okay. Yes, I can now. Okay, so in doing that, I'm having to learn that I have to also show, like, having kids has been life changing for me because it's like I have to show my kids what it looks like to fail and get back up.
Yep.
I have to, if they don't see it, how are they gonna know it? So in doing this, one day I'll be able to talk to my kids and say, COVID took me out, honey. I did not know how my business was going to survive. I didn't know how I was going to overcome that. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And even now, I'm in that. There are some things that I have inside of me that I want to do that I've actually been afraid to do. And I'm going to let you know that having this conversation here with you all today is helping me even to build up my confidence and say, Ashley, what do you have to
Yes.
lose? Okay, if you do it and you fail, at least you tried it. And you know what? Maybe that's not what God had for me, but it's something that's been placed inside of
Mm-hmm.
you for a reason. Any dream that you have, any want that you have, it's already there. It was placed inside of you for a reason. And it is your job to figure out the purpose in your passion. You have that passion for a reason. You have that gift for a reason. What is the purpose? And that's something that you can only figure out by exploring,
Yep.
by trying. And every time you try something, it's inevitable that you're going to fail at some point along the way. But what do you do after that? How do you pick yourself up after that? I remember when my freshman year of college, I got an F in math. I think it was
Oh,
calculus or pre-cal. That was the first F I'd ever gotten in my life. I was like, what in the world? Like, it almost took me out. But you know what I
mm-hmm.
did? I said, okay, this does not make me feel good. What am I going to do better next time? How am I going to set myself up for success next time? And yeah, it was something I learned. Listen, math is not my strong suit. So it's okay if I get a B or a C in that. Guess what? We're making it,
Right.
And so I learned to push past that and to keep going no matter what.
Yep. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and it's important to know those. And it's important to be like, okay, this is my strength and this is my weakness. And I might get, knocked down in my weakness a little bit. And then as you grow, you get support, right? You get support for the people that can help and you can ask those questions. So I love that. I think that's so wonderful. Cynthia, do you want, first of all, I want Ashley just share a little bit where people can find you. I mean, I know I just talked about this, but where can they're like, okay, well, I want that lipstick. I want that makeup. Where do I get it? And then I know you have an offer. And then I do want to end with, the foundation, just so we can touch on that as well. But just let people know where they can buy your amazing cosmetics.
Oh, thank you. You can go to elizabellacosmetics.com. ELIZABELLA cosmetics.com. Here is actually the Bella lipstick that I'm currently wearing. Elizabella Cosmetics, Bella liquid velvet lipstick, goes on smooth, stays on all day.
That's amazing. And if they go to your Instagram, like if they're like, oh, okay, but they go to their Instagram, they can find it. Or even if they go to your profile here, you have your stuff linked so they'll be able to go there as well, correct?
Yes. So I have ashleypeterson.com linked in my bio. From there, you can get to elizabellacosmetics.com. You can also find me at Mrs. Ashley Peterson on Instagram or at Elizabella Cosmetics on Instagram.
Perfect. And this will be all in the show notes. If you guys are driving, please, again, don't be starting to try to write things and text things to people and pulling over. We will have this all in the show notes when this goes live on all the podcast players. You'll be able to catch this on Fireside wherever you are. If you're like, wait, I want to listen, you can go back to Fireside and the replay will be here within an hour. And then this will go out on all the podcast players on your next stop, probably in a couple weeks, but we'll let you guys know about that. But so that is amazing. Cynthia, did you want to jump in? Oh, you're muted. All of a sudden I was like, I can't hear
we shared the recorded show too right away. And I think it's so fantastic that Ashley is going to be giving away a beautiful tube of the Bella lipstick to one of our sharers or somebody that likes one of our posts in sharing this episode. And I personally know I have the Bella, and it is fantastic. And it is so smooth and so beautiful, and it does stay on, and it's just quality product. All of the products are. And so I'm excited that we'll be able to gift that to somebody. Thank you for that. I think that would be really fun for somebody to receive that.
Oh, definitely.
And Juliet,
Oh, yeah. And I think they're going to love it.
Oh, it's so good. Well, thank you so much for that too, because one Super Bowl, we had the Bella lipstick in the thread swag bag at the luncheon, and everybody went crazy over it. And so it's always so fun to support each other, but also to get to try the products and share the products. And that's the whole idea of like just all of us helping each other grow in these beautiful projects that everybody's doing in businesses. So.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have time to touch upon the A&A Peterson Family Foundation?
Well, I'm fine on my side, but Ashley, I know we're a little over an hour.
Are you okay with that,
I'm fine.
Ashley? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just think it's important because, you're teaching your children so many beautiful life lessons. And along with that is, this family, you know, beautiful project together, this creating a foundation together, which, the children are watching you and Adrian also go out into the community. And so not only you're putting resources into children's hands for educational purposes, educational resources that will allow them to live their dreams. And so I just want to talk about the foundation, but I also want to talk about how your children are reacting to what you guys are doing in the community.
Yes. So we actually started the A&A Peterson Foundation just a few years ago in 2018. Previously, before that, my husband actually had a foundation that his mom and his dad headed up for him. So it's something that we'd always done. We just decided to switch it from being something that he had as a youth, if we could say, with his parents, to something that we could enjoy together as a family and take over and kind of do exactly what we wanted to do. So it's something, I mean, for years he gave away turkeys in Palestine, Texas, which is his hometown. He would give away turkeys at Thanksgiving. We do toys at Christmas. We would do backpacks at the beginning of the school year. And it was something actually that was so wonderful because our kids were able to also join in. So if we look back at pictures over the years, we have pictures of our kids at these toy giveaways. When my husband would dress up as Santa and I would dress up as Mrs. Claus, and our kids were there helping hand out toys to these kids, and they were able to see, you guys are blessed to be in this position, especially our older two. Axel, our youngest one, he hasn't quite known what's going on yet, but he's getting to an age where he'll start to understand. But being able to hand out toys to these kids and have our kids say, I remember one year we were at a home, like a shelter, a women's shelter in Minnesota, and Adrian Jr. said, well, why doesn't Santa just bring their gifts? It was a question. It's like, okay, how do I answer this? I said, well, Santa is going to bring them gifts. Well, we're going to help out and give them gifts as well, because in addition to Santa giving you gifts, mom and dad give you gifts as well. And these people, their mom and dad can't give them all of the gifts that they like to give them. So we're going to help out. And so just having the opportunity for our kids to see something different, to see that what you have has been afforded to you by the grace of God and no other reason. Like, you're not super special. You are super special, but you're not immune to life. Life can take you on many different paths, and you guys need to understand that you're blessed to be in this position, and you should never take it for granted, because just like that, it can all be gone. And that's something I've always tried to stress to our children: being hardworking, being gracious, and understanding that everything you have, nothing that you have is because of you. Everything that you have is because God has given it to you, and He's given it to you for a reason. So you need to use that wisely.
Oh, I love that.
Absolutely.
And so just having the opportunity to have them, go along with us. When COVID hit, we were actually able to do a food drive with Brothers Produce, and we were able to give away produce to a Title I school here in Houston. And we were able to partner with the Barbara Literacy Foundation to go to a Title I school in the ward of Houston, in one of the wards of Houston, and to give them a little fun, to have a little play day with them. My husband training them like they were athletes. And our kids have been there every step of the way to be able to see these things. So they're able to see that, yes, God has been able to bless us with these things, but you also then have a charge to go out and share what you've been given in one way or another. And so it's teaching them balance. You have to have balance in life. You have to realize that life is not just about you. What can you give to others to enrich their lives as well?
That's so beautiful. And the thing that I think, again, and I'm going to say it again, and I know people are like, oh my gosh, she keeps saying it, but stories connect, right? And the reason why we started this, Cynthia and I started the segment, is because we wanted the good right? Not just the stuff that's out in the media that, gets clogged that we hear. We wanted all the good stories. And I love that you were just able to connect that, because I can see you guys as a family of four going out and helping, and your kids being like, wow. And again, Cynthia, you're going to laugh at me, but every one of you women are just amazing. And the families and the giving back. I say this, and I say this every single time, but God put the NFL community. And yes, I truly believe this, that you are special. You're picked for this because you can handle it, but you can also have a platform, and you all have service hearts to give back and to give to people. And some might have a bigger service heart, some might have a smaller service heart, but every single one of you people, one of the guests.
you NFL people.
Yeah. I'm the layman, you're the people. What you guys have gone on the show and talked about what you do giving back. And it's such a beautiful thing. And I just thank you so much for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread and here live on Fireside.
Exactly. Ashley, if you don't mind, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to visit and contribute to the foundation. So it's ANA Peterson Family Foundation.org. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. That is it. You can go on and find out what we're doing and what we have going. We, I'm sorry, not last year, but the year before, I was actually able to do something called Gowns for Girls. So I was actually just looking in my closet one day, cleaning it out, and I had all these gowns from all these things I had done over the years, and I had nothing to do with them. And I said to myself, I'm going to auction these gowns off, and I'm going to give it to the Chester Pitts Foundation. So Chester and Latoya Pitts are based here in Houston. They basically have a girls group home where they take in girls who are displaced, essentially, runaways or foster children, and they feed them, they house them, they educate them, they clothe them, everything. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna donate these gowns. Essentially, I'm gonna auction them, and I'm gonna give the proceeds to them. Well, when other people see, when you're excited about something, a lot of times other people get excited.
That's what we talk about.
So when other people saw that I was doing that, yes, they were like, hey, I want to help. Well, how can I donate a gown? So I had people come in that donated gowns. I had a company come in and say, hey, we do auctions. We want to help you. We want to get you sports memorabilia to help you raise even more money. And so I ended up, by the end of that, not just having my gowns, but other gowns, sports memorabilia, etc. And we were able to raise together over $10,000 for this girl's home.
That's
and
amazing.
So things like that are why I do this, and my kids were able to see me with all these gowns in the house, doing these things and putting it all together. They're able to actually see the work, and they're able to see that nothing comes easily. Every single thing, no matter what you're doing, even if you're trying to do it as a service unto others, you're going to have to put the work in order to get it done. And if they don't learn anything else in life from me, I want them to learn that hard work beats talent every time.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's hard work to give too, and it takes so much time, and it's such a beautiful gift to give others is your time. More the funds are so important too, but the time, it does, you don't get the funds without the time, and it's really amazing. It's incredible that you did that.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that.
Especially because time is the one thing you can't get back. You can get your money back, but you cannot get your time back. Once you've spent it, it's gone. So make sure you spend it wisely.
That's true. A good quote there, girly.
It is. I love that. I love that. Well, Ashley, I have to say thank you again so much for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread here on Pivot. Cynthia, thank you always. I love what we do. I love that we're getting these stories out and connecting with more and more people in the NFL community, but also outside the community where people are like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't know that because no one talks about it. And that's why we brought you to YNS Live with NFL Thread, because these are the stories that are important. These are the stories that are important. The things of people giving back, the things of people overcoming, the story that you told. And I mean, still just go back to that when you gave up everything that you had fought for because you wanted to be there for your family. And then knowing, wait, I need to do more for myself again, because some people feel like, oh, I can't do that because that's selfish. There's nothing, if you need to fill your own cup before you can go out and fill others. And so you did that so beautifully. So thank you so much, Ashley Peterson, for joining. All right, we're going to bring up.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having
Please.
me.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Let's see what kind of music we get today. All right, a little upbeat. It's not the slow. Thank you guys again for joining YNS Live with NFL Thread. Wherever you're watching, if you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Facebook, if you're on the replay, share this episode. More people need to hear the story. They need to hear Ashley Peterson's story. They need to get her cosmetics and learn about the foundation. So again, thank you for joining here live.